Hi, everyone, and welcome to Coach Talks. This is a space where we dive deep into ADHD from the perspective of coaches who not only help others manage it, but also live with it themselves. I'm CJ Pringle, a certified ADHD life coach with Agave Health, and yes, I have ADHD too. Today, I'm excited to break down the concept of executive function, what it looks like when it's running smoothly, and how ADHD can throw a wrench into that process. Along the way, I'll share some personal stories that I think will really resonate with many of you. So, what is executive function? Because I love music, I like to think of executive function as an orchestral conductor for the brain. Just like a conductor ensures that every musician plays their part at the right time, executive function helps you plan, organize, focus, and manage your emotions. It keeps everything in sync, your thoughts, your actions, and decisions, so you can function smoothly in daily life. When executive function is working well, it's like a perfectly timed symphony where all the instruments come together in harmony. But when it's disrupted, especially for someone with ADHD, it's like the conductor isn't keeping track and the orchestra starts to fall apart. Everything happens out of order. Some sections play too loudly or not at all, and you can't get anything to sound right. So there are eight key executive functions. There's impulse control, emotional regulation, flexible thinking, working memory, self monitoring, planning and prioritization, task initiation, and organization. So I'll go through each of these. First up is flexible thinking. This allows you to shift gears easily, adjust to new information, and handle changes without getting overwhelmed. With ADHD, flexible thinking can often feel like trying to steer a cruise ship. When plans change or something unexpected happens, your brain locks up. It's like in one mode, stuck, and shifting can be a struggle. You might be working on one task, but if someone throws you a curveball, like needing to switch gears to handle an urgent issue, you might welcome the change because it's a new shiny object, or you might literally just freeze and struggle with figuring out how to adjust on a dime. It could be a struggle with looking at a situation from a different perspective, only being able to see your own. Maybe you get stuck on a certain approach to a situation and have difficulty thinking outside the box. So, if you're in a maze, flexible thinking allows you to change directions easily. But if you have ADHD, it's kind of like hitting constant roadblocks. Then we have working memory. Working memory helps you hold on to information long enough to use it, like remembering what to grab at the store without a list or following multi step instructions. With ADHD, it's like having a sieve for a brain. I can hold on to information for maybe a few moments and then it's just gone. My working memory is constantly playing tricks on me. And when working memory is deficient, our brain struggles to hold on to details long enough to make them useful in the moment, which is why we often lose track of what we're doing, despite being highly engaged just seconds before. And it's so frustrating because in those moments, you know what you want to do. You just can't seem to keep it in your head long enough to actually follow through. As quickly as it comes, it fades for someone with ADHD, just like bubbles. Self monitoring. Self monitoring is being aware of your actions and adjusting them based on feedback from the environment. With ADHD, self monitoring can feel like constantly being surprised by your own behavior. So you think everything's cool at home, but your spouse is boiling mad at you for something you're completely oblivious to. Or people might describe you a certain way that shocks you. I remember people I worked with used to tell me that I'm intimidating. I'm like, seriously? I can't even intimidate my kids. But little did I know, I apparently have an unpleasant thinking face. So if I'm trying to make sense of what you're saying or I disagree with what you're saying and I think I'm hiding it, I've learned that I'm not. So, self monitoring often shows up during social interactions. You might be mid conversation and suddenly notice that you've spent the last 10 minutes monologuing on something that's completely unrelated to the topic of conversation. So, self monitoring isn't automatic for people with ADHD. It's something we constantly have to remind ourselves to do, and it's usually after we've already gone off track. We have planning and prioritizing. This involves setting goals, determining steps, and figuring out which tasks are most important. With ADHD, planning and prioritizing might feel like herding cats. You'll sit down with a plan in mind, but it quickly becomes derailed by distractions or indecision about which task is most important. I love helping other people structure their goals and create plans, but when it comes to planning my own day, I get stuck. I'll agonize over what to start first, whether I should respond to emails or work on my business strategy, and sometimes end up either doing nothing or spending time on the wrong thing. Something also to note is major changes in responsibilities or roles can cause these skills to feel harder than before. So let's say you were an individual contributor at your job, but you got promoted to now manage a team. Yay! More than likely, planning and prioritizing are going to be more critical than before. And you may struggle with this and not recognize the reason for it. Maybe you changed jobs and your old job had structure and the new company doesn't. And you desperately need that structure and struggle to create it for yourself because you've never had to do that before. That can make things a little challenging. Then we have task initiation. This means being able to start a task without procrastination or distraction. For someone with ADHD, getting started can feel like trying to push a boulder uphill. The longer you delay starting, the more impossible the task feels. Blogging is a perfect example of this. I'll spend hours researching, thinking, and planning, but actually starting to write, that's a whole other story. It's not that I don't want to write, it's that starting feels overwhelming. So I end up spending 30 minutes adjusting Word document settings instead. When distraction or procrastination takes over for someone with ADHD, it can paralyze your ability to start. Organization. This involves keeping track of items, tasks, and information in a way that allows you to access them when needed. With ADHD, staying organized feels like juggling 100 balls in the air while trying to remember which one you're supposed to catch first. I'll admit it, when it comes to keeping track of physical objects, I'm a hot mess. I lose things constantly: my keys, my phone, my car, you name it. But the real challenge is organizing my thoughts. It could be as simple as telling you about my day. Will I start at the beginning? Of course not. I'm going to start it at the middle, then go back to the beginning, and by the time I'm done, you'll be left bewildered and confused, just like my husband. Communicating thoughts in a structured and organized way is like untangling a huge knot. So, yes, the struggle with organization is real because ADHD creates constant disorder, both in physical spaces and in mental organization. Impulse control. This is the ability to pause before acting or speaking, giving you time to think through your response. With ADHD, for me, impulse control can be like watching myself from the outside as I say or do things without thinking, only realizing the impact when it's too late. I can't count the number of times I've blurted something out in the middle of a conversation that I instantly regretted. Sometimes it's a random comment, and other times it's something more sensitive that I really should have kept to myself. It's that feeling of wanting to hit pause before speaking, but the pause button is broken. And last but not least, emotional regulation. Emotional control is managing your emotional responses and reacting proportionally to situations. So with ADHD, emotional control is like being on a roller coaster with no seatbelt. Emotions often come out in extremes, whether it's excitement, fear, frustration, or sadness. For instance, I might watch a movie or a Publix commercial and bawl my eyes out. But I also could feel completely detached and unemotional in situations that would warrant more emotion. So with ADHD, I'm either feeling things intensely or not at all. It's hard to find a middle ground. And this intensity affects not just how you react to situations, but also your relationships, especially when rejection sensitive dysphoria comes into play, which is a whole other topic. So, what does all of this mean? Well, executive function plays a crucial role in how we live, work, and relate to others. And for those of us with ADHD, it's like our orchestra conductor is distracted, which causes our thoughts, our actions, and emotions to get out of sync. We may have some instruments coming in too early, too loudly, or not at all. But just like an orchestra can be brought back under control, there are tools and strategies we can use to help conduct our brains more effectively, and that mental symphony can start to fall into harmony again. There will always be challenges in life living with ADHD, but once we understand how it affects our executive functions, we can start to develop strategies to work with it, not against it. For me, ADHD isn't just a challenge, it's also a learning process. Every day, I'm discovering new ways to manage, whether through revised strategies, new tools, medication, coaching, journaling, or simply giving myself the grace to know I'm doing the best I can. If you're navigating similar waters, remember, you've got the keys, even if it sometimes feels like you've misplaced them. And with the right support, like coaching, you can make beautiful music out of chaos. Thanks for listening.